All right, peace be our family. We brought another special to you. Usually we don't do on Wednesdays, but we find this to be very important. And as just explained in the YouTube thumbnail, this is the scouting report. So we got some, people who work in transportation, infrastructure. I do a little bit of civil engineering, and we're gonna give our opinions on how we can build the infrastructure in Liberia and make sure that, everything is up to standard. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, make sure to comment down below. Tell us what you think. Um, yeah, so I'll give the floor to you, Ronan, first, and then I'll come in when I feel maybe like necessary or absolute. But I'm gonna let the transportation person go first.
All right. Well, I don't know. I think Hollow put something on Signal maybe like a week or maybe 2 weeks ago, and I decided to look at like the satellite views of Monrovia, and I just noticed that you know, as far as and the other video that you posted, when the brother was talking about like traffic in Liberia, and looking at like the main like Tubman Boulevard, that's like the main artery that runs through Monrovia. You know, there's no major highway like running through there. That what I noticed. Like if you were like in Atlanta or Chicago, New York, stuff like that. There's no major highway going to the airport. I noticed like some of the streets coming off of Tupman Boulevard. You have lots. I know it's like on one specific lot. There's like four, five, six, seven houses on one lot. Like you go in a regular neighborhood, you got one lot, one house, next house, next house, next house, not multiple dwellings on one lot. Um, Also in the video that the brother was talking about, I guess the falls in Liberia, the road's not paved. You can see that they started doing some type of work on it, but it's still mud. So I think for Liberia, you look at Monrovia and other, surrounding areas, definitely the traffic infrastructure needs to be upgraded. You know, other parts, some of the other parts, like, way out in the country parts of where there's like farmland, roads got to be updated up there, paved, high speed rail, all of that should be incorporated into rebuilding Liberia in general, not just Monrovia, just all of it in general. And if you want to make this compete with other places like the Singapores, um, Vietnam, Hong Kong, different cities and provinces in China, stuff like that. Because in that video, that guy's talking about, you want to do running errands, and it could take you like half the day just to go from one end to the other end to run errands. That's just unacceptable. You can't have that.
Big brother Ronan, it's good to hear your voice, sir.
Hey, what's up, Moses?
Same old stuff, just getting off work my way.
Yeah, even right now I'm looking at these satellite views of some of the cities on in Liberia. Trying to get like a better view, a satellite view. My tablet is not cooperating with me right now.
Jabari,
Oh, okay,
you,
I'm here. Yeah. So if
uh, I had a question for you.
yeah.
If you have any of the, because I know you keep tally on the Liberia connects, and I'm hoping you have some of their emails. I think it'll be really good to send this video to them so we can
All
make
right.
sure that we and hear this. I think that'd be a good idea if we can.
Oh, definitely, I can do that. That's certainly no problem. I got their context. But yeah, so I'll get that to them. Um, so if you look at even just a basic roadmap, I'm just gonna do a basic, simple roadmap. So if you look on the screen, you see how in Monrovia, even in the city of Monrovia, there's like two or three roads. There's not a lot of roads there. And then once you get out in the Monrovia area, basically it's just a one-way road. There's not a lot of roads connecting the country. It's just one to get in, one to get out, and that's really it. And you can see that in some of the smaller cities, it's just one road system, and there's no other way to get into the city. So I think that is a problem. Like the whole country needs to be interconnected and not just have one or two roads and thinking that that's good enough.
Yeah, you're right on that. Definitely. Like I'm looking at some of this right now, and it's too like you look at Monrovia, it's so densely packed. Um, if you look,
I'll give you population wise. Liberia has a population close to 5 million, and about 1.5 million lives in Monrovia alone. So about 25 to 30% of the population lives in just Monrovia by itself.
yeah, that's crazy. You know, that's just crazy. Um, there has to be relief. Like all of that, you have to have. You got a main roadway. There has to be other arteries running through that area. You can't have that much traffic, that many people, cars on the road, and that a lack of public transportation as well. So you just got this overflowing of cars, and there's nowhere for them to go. I mean, like if you look at, for example, cities here, like you look at New York. New York is densely populated, and I think a lot of people in New York should do more public transportation. But there's other streets. You can go down different side streets. They got different little highways running through Manhattan. You got the Bruckner, you got the West Side Highway, you got stuff like that. Even here in Jersey, in different cities, you got local highways, state highways, county routes. Those are all things that can be added in Monrovia and the surrounding areas as well. Um, you just can't have that much, have it that densely populated, and there's just no escape for cars to get out. I mean, not that doesn't help as far as like the environment. It doesn't help. You just got a ton of vehicles kicking out a bunch of noxious gas. That doesn't help either.
And also, I would say there needs to be a stronger bus system. I think that would also limit the congestion if people need to start using buses, and buses need to be a high priority. Because I just don't see the buses there. Um, what I see is I see just a bunch of cars on the road, and there's really no bus system. There's no transit. There's no none of that. And I think if there was a strong, robust bus system that had routes that people could go to, I think that could also deal with the congestion because you would actually have, multiple avenues of getting in and out of the city.
Yep, yep, absolutely. Like for example, like I'm looking at where the airport is at. You got an airfield shortcut. This should be like a major highway going to the airport. This should be like like a monorail service or some type of train, like, sort of like they have at the airport in Atlanta or
Mhm.
even at Dallas, like a monorail system, or having public transportation going right to the airport. So you got different ways to connect to get there. I mean, it's just an airstrip. Literally what it looks like. It just looks like an airstrip. Um, Whoever is doing the department of DOT in Liberia, whoever it's got to be upgraded. You know, I'm just looking at that. Even in rural areas, like if you're looking at even like here in the states, you got your major big city and stuff like that. You still have highways that connecting from rural areas that connect you into the city. And then, like I said before, you have these county routes. So you don't want to take an interstate highway. You can take a little longer. You can drive through the country, and you're on this county route. Um, these are all things that can be easily, I think, can be easily transferred over to Liberia. Definitely.
And based on what I've seen, and I'm going strictly off of this, what I notice is that everything only goes to Monrovia. But you notice how, as you oppose River says Greenville, you notice how there's no like road system there. It's kind of like they kind of have to figure out how to get to those areas. And I think that that could be a problem. If people in River says don't have access to this major road system, how do they navigate? Do they got to go all the way around here and drive? Because that's a long drive when you could just go here and get your way to Monrovia. So I think that as well, everything. Monrovia should be a major centerpiece, but it should be more decentralized and more devolved. There
Yeah,
should be multiple cities where there are multiple ways to, get in them and then get to Monrovia. It shouldn't be Monrovia itself, and then every other city just has is just going en route there. If I'm making myself clear.
yeah, I get it. Um, just like in New York, you got Manhattan, and then you got the boroughs. You got Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens. Um, or I'm looking at this like I'm looking at Monrovia and looking at it like if this was like Newark, New Jersey, and then you got surrounding areas, cities that connect right to it, surrounding areas, Irvington, Elizabeth, East Orange, places like that, and you just got this one road. You can't have that. There's no way. It's just you just have a constant backlog of traffic. Um, and there's a whole bunch of different things. Like I work for an engineering firm, and one of the things they do, usually in cities, even in suburban cities outside of major areas, they promote people riding bikes. They have bike paths on major streets. So they promote people like, yeah, you got all these different little startup companies coming out with these motorized bikes and stuff like that, bike sharing programs, stuff like that. And like you said, you add buses, you know, that'll definitely help. It'll help keep a lot of cars off the road. Um, but
Yeah,
they got to
yeah.
clean
And
this up.
speaking on your roads, it says um only about like 6% of the roads of the national road network is paved. There are no passenger rail services. Um, that's a thing that we need to be aware of as well. Um, in terms of electricity, because I know Dawood does electricity. 38% of diesel consumers in Liberia is used to produce electricity, and most domestic energy needs are provided by charcoal and wood. And only like 20% of the country has full running electricity.
That yep, that too. The electrical grid has to be updated. Water and waste treatment management that has to be updated. You're talking about, like I said before, like you have these neighborhoods off of Tubman Boulevard, and like I said, you have these lots. There's like four, five, six houses on a lot. What is the pipe structure coming from the street into the houses? What does that look like? All that has to be completely redone. That has to be redone. You're talking about upgrading as far as living spaces, better housing. All of that can be done. You got these things now where you can just 3D printable houses. All of that. You just got people packed on top of each other, and this is not this is not a good look. That's not going to make people feel comfortable. You're going to feel like you're just boxed in.
Hmm.
Because I mean, I see this stuff all the time when I'm out doing traffic counts um, here in New Jersey, and I always get ideas. A comparison, like, all right, what it looks like here as compared to what could be done there. Um, and doing the traffic counts, like I think Halab asked me a question um, about using satellites on Sunday on Discord about using drones. I mean, you scope out the area and stuff like that. And we also use cameras to count cars. And if you were to do that, like we have something that's called Mile Vision, where you just take cameras and put them on poles. So you say, like, if for New York, from Jersey going to New York, going to George Washington Bridge, you know, trying to slow down traffic or doing a slowdown so we can get out there and put tubes, you know, that's not really going to work. And you're looking at just the sheer amount of cars going through there every single day. And the tubes won't just take that. After a while, the tubes just wear out. But you can use cameras to count the number of cars that are going through in from Jersey into New York and vice versa coming from New York into Jersey. As far as if you're looking about giving jobs to people right there within the country, you know, you get the counters, you get the tubes, you get the software. So you're giving people jobs to go out there. They can lay these tubes down. You can get a count. So that's putting bodies. That's a lot of putting a lot of bodies out there. So you'll have a lot of people be able to work and be involved in helping rebuild the nation, upgrading the nation. You know, because you put cameras there, that's going to reduce a lot of jobs for people. But if you're just doing the tubes, laying them out, getting the counters, putting them out there, picking them up, having people look at the data, uploading that data, creating a brand new Department of Transportation, not just for Monrovia, but for the entire country. And then you can get these roads paved. You can look at what the traffic is like here, what can be done to alleviate all the traffic, or all this traffic that's on this one road in this part of the city. What can you do to alleviate that? Then you talk about just a whole bunch of different things can be done where people will have jobs helping rebuild the country to suit them. So,
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And I'm gonna bring up his point, and then I want to know what you think, and I'll give my thoughts on it too. African American realists said they need to create a Metro Monrovia to relieve the city's overpopulation, but that's gonna cost lots of money. I agree with that, and I also think that they need to start creating more business districts or central business districts in other counties. So Liberia has 15 counties, and they need to have a business district set up in each of those counties so that it encourages more people to leave Monrovia instead of just them staying in Monrovia. Because Metro Monrovia is great. We can have Metro Monrovia, and then you have the outskirts like New Georgia, Louisiana, Painesville, Brewerville. They can be, sort of the surrounding suburbs. But you really need people to start going into the other counties like Bong and Grand Cape Mount and Grand Bassa. And so I think part of the infrastructure plan needs to be the establishment of central business districts in each of the county so that the population can be more evenly spread instead of just being in Monrovia and in the outskirts. That's one of the things like Ronan was talking about. Even when you talk about, in example, New York, you have New York City, but you also have, like you said, the Newark, you have Hoboken, but you also have Trenton. That's not far away. You have Albany, which is a good 2 or 3 hours away, and then you got Buffalo, New York, just in the state of New York. And where I'm living at in North Carolina, you have Charlotte, and Selena can tell you, we got Charlotte, Greensboro, Winston, Durham, Riley, and so you need that in Liberia, where it's not just Monrovia, but Monrovia, Buchanan, Robertsport, Gabarnga, um, what else? Plebo, you know, in each county. So that's what I would also add to the infrastructure, because like he said, that's gonna cost a lot of money. That's gonna cost a lot of planning. That's gonna cost us to really survey the land. Um, understanding the geography. I don't know, Roni, if you're equipped on tropical climate, but what would you think, for as a country that's in the tropical region, in the tropics, what would you suggest in terms of infrastructure, in terms of materials? Do you think it should be more reliant on, green technologies. What do you think about that, especially considering the location of Liberia? And it rains a lot. And it rains a lot. Just so you know.
All right. Not my forte. I'm just shooting from the hip. Um, with green technology, you can do the windmills like you see, like down in Atlantic City, they have the windmills, so that creates electricity. Um, with the roadways being as I would say you would go away from black asphalt and use white asphalt. One with black asphalt, if you're talking about a day, it's like 95 degrees, and you're laying down those tubes. It's like 110 on the pavement, so you got that heat coming back at you. The white asphalt that will greatly reduce the heat on the roadways, so you won't get crazy dehydrated out there working. Um, so that's one way you can do that. I think um, I'm looking at this, like on the coast. Like I'm looking at this other map. Like even on the coast, man, there should be roadways going into the coast where you can have like little resort towns and stuff like that. Attract people to come in. That'll help bring money, tourism money. Um, I mean, like energy wise, that's not my forte. My thing is like strictly I do traffic counts and I do I basically do road work inventory, like what the roads look like. Do you need stoplights here, stuff like that. Um, and I'm always learning as I go, as I'm doing the job and talking to different engineers who I'm able to get into contact with my job. Um,
In
I,
regards to tropical areas, when it comes to technology, the first thing that you got to look at is corrosion. Because if you have any kind of electronics and it rains a lot, then you have to prepare your electronics to survive extremely wet locations, because a lot of water mixed with oxygen causes what's called slow oxidation, which we all know is rust. So if you have electronics, they have to be rated for outside if they're outside, but that doesn't really come into play inside buildings. So if um you have, let's just say you have cameras, you have scanners, anything that you have on the outside has to be rated for the outside in such fashion that it can deal with the harsh conditions of rain and moisture, because electricity does not like moisture. Silicon and semiconductors don't like moisture. So you have to always have equipment that is rated for outside, which tends to be a lot more expensive. And so we would have to have a plug someplace where they're selling outdoor rated equipment that is not going to kill us financially. When it comes to energy and situations like that, in a country that we're trying to bring our skills and expertise, but at the same time, we're not trying to eliminate the beautiful element of it being tropical, of it being natural. You got to try to strike a balance. And there's cities in America that have done that. Cities like Portland, Oregon, places that are more green, they tend to be run by liberals. Places that are not green, they tend to be run by conservatives. Not saying that I'm down with one party or not down with another party, but you can tell when you go to places and they have a lot of green initiatives, that's a liberal state because they care about the environment. The Republicans try their best to try to deny climate control, climate change and all this other stuff. So they tend to have, as you can see, what happened to what you call it there with Texas. They're not really in the mood to kind of acknowledge that things is getting rougher. And so because of that, their infrastructure is not prepared for harsh conditions. So when we start thinking about energy, when we start thinking about infrastructure with electronics and things like that, in a tropical country, the biggest thing you got to worry about is number one, you have to worry about moisture and corrosion. But really, number two, in a tropical country, that means that the insects are larger. And this is a little known thing that most people think about. Because the insects are larger, the insects get inside they get inside your house, they get inside your electronics. And living in the Northeast, like me and Ronan and Polyp, we all live in New York, New Jersey. These insects that we have, they don't get too big because when the wintertime comes, it kills them all, or they go into hibernation. In tropical countries like Africa, you got large insects, large pests, things like that. And they like to make homes in your electronics because in the summertime, I love doing my job because I don't have to wear a coat, but I hate doing my job because I got to fight bees. I got to fight, all sorts of things. And I can imagine what people who do what I do go through in Arizona and places like that where it's hot all year round. Like they must have large insects that they deal with. So these are some of the considerations that we have to go through. The second thing is heat. How hot does it get in the country that you're putting these electronics in? Because electricity don't like heat either. Things overheat, things don't run as efficiently as they normally do. And you'll see if you go into what they call a server room, where there's a lot of network switches there, you'll see what do? They always keep it cool because
Cool.
electricity likes things more cooler than they do like it hot. If things overheat, you'll start to see everything run like very, very inefficiently because it's not designed to run under heavy heat. So that means that anything that we would get infrastructure wise has to be also rated for extreme temperatures and heat. So I mean, it's doable what we're saying. It's just that there's a lot more considerations than we think when it comes to setting things up in a tropical country because, like again, you got moisture, you got insects, and you got heat. Those are the three things that people in my industry hate because not because we don't like them physically, but because they interfere with electronics and how electronics roll. So if we're going to put cameras on a highway in order to count people, which I agree with also, we would have to make sure that they're rated for outside. Another thing I would think is that if we're trying to industrialize a nation and help them industrialize, we also have to be very sensitive to the surrounding cities and countries and things like that. Because if we put too much surveillance in, then they're going to think that you're trying to bring the colonized mind state over there. They're going to be like, we don't have cameras like that over here. Why y'all putting all these cameras up? Why are you putting all this kind of technology up? So the aspect of trying to industrialize a nation like we know how it should be, it has to strike a balance. We have to have and Hollip is the you know what I'm saying, the main diplomat, the person that could negotiate things. But we always have to negotiate what the culture would allow and what's best because we don't want no kind of mutiny just because of the stuff that we're trying to do, even though we're well intentioned. A lot of times if you bring too much technology that seems to be threatening to people, then they reject it. And I can tell you this because being a person that puts in cameras, when a company asks us to put in cameras in a company that's been and they haven't had them, all the employees rebel against it. They all say, "Oh, do they have sound? Can y'all listen to us?" Because to them, that's an adversarial thing that you're doing. And so
Yeah.
if you transpose that on a new nation, and you already had people in that nation, they start seeing all these cameras go up, they can be like, "Yo, what the fuck? Like, who told y'all to do this? This is not how we're used to living." So you always have to have a healthy balance. For myself, being a person that not only is in the security industry but studies it, I know that there's ways in order to get surveillance without actually putting up cameras. And what they call it is they call it natural surveillance, where you style and you kind of organize your property so that people could look at each other. They could look at each other's properties. People staying far away from each other, that's a European thing. Us being close together and looking out for each other, that's really an African thing. And so us being close enough to each other that I can look at your house and make sure that somebody's not robbing you, that's what they call natural surveillance. So there's a lot of ways that we can, even though we do want some kind of modern technology, there's a lot of ways that we can set this up that's not offensive to indigenous population, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's really the main thing. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, we want to be able to detect, you want to be able to detect adversaries and invaders. You want to be able to detect terrorism. You want to be able to detect people, spies, things like that. And the beautiful thing about it is that technology in the security industry is moving more towards what they call analytics. Having the processing power to be able to view a person on a camera and see, are they somebody that you're looking for? You know what I'm saying? Is this somebody that is a known threat actor, and you have a database, and then the database will automatically scan every time it looks at the face. But people get nervous with this kind of stuff, and they say, "Oh, Big Brother's watching you." But I think that in our own nation, we would have enough. I think we would have generated enough national pride that people would trust us enough to say that, well, we're doing this in your best interest. Because one thing that in America, White people trust surveillance to a certain degree because it's their country. So they know, like, hey, they're trying to catch people that was going to bring down their country. Black people really don't trust cameras in America because we know this ain't ours. But in your own nation, you would say, okay, we're putting these up because we're trying to protect you. Sometimes that's a hard sell, sometimes it's not. But it's needed because as one thing that you saw during the whole COVID-19 pandemic is they coming out with temperature cameras, cameras that could scan you and see if your temperature is high enough for you to have potential fever because because basically the country knew we can't trust y'all. We can't trust y'all to say that you got the fever and stay the fuck home. So we got cameras that's scanning you to see if your temperature is too high. And I put in many of them, and it goes off, and it's pretty accurate, even though people try to speak against it. But don't you think it's kind of wild that a camera can look at you and tell you got 100-degree fever? That's bizarre to me. But we've gotten to that point. Some cameras could tell when there's too many people in one area, like for like shopping centers who are trying to basically stop customers from coming and going. You know what I'm saying? To the point where they're not being waited on because they got lazy employees. They have cameras that draw a line and they count the people. And they say, okay, there's like 15, 20 people here. How come nobody waited on them? Sends an alarm. These kind of things are where technology and security is going. It's not only trying to stop a threat actor, but it doubles as an efficiency tool. And I think that in our nation, I think that we would use security technology in America more for efficiency. But also, I think that going forward, as far as like, and I know I'm jumping off the energy topic for a second, but going off, I would have to partner with a couple of my friends that are in the manned, like actual human security situation, because they would know where to place guards. They would know where to place people who could spot threats and be able to train people to the point where you can see a threat or you can't see a threat. You know what I'm saying? So I think
Hmm.
these are some of the things that we would need to think of. And on your point earlier, when you were talking about business districts, and I think attracting people to other cities, I agree with that. And I think that what we would do was, once in place and building, we would sponsor a lot of training because I think that the people make the nation and the nation don't make the people. So the people themselves, if they had the skills, they could go see. For me, I can go anywhere and do what I'm doing because the skill is in me. My skill is not dependent upon America. I think that giving the African people the skills that we have and teaching them and making them proficient is one of the most liberating things that we could do because that way they can go anywhere they want to with the skill. I think that what happens a lot of times is people are limited to certain areas because your skill, what limited skills you have, can only be applied in that particular area. But what if you have a skill or skills, a set of skills that could take you all around Liberia and you can apply them wherever you want to go? That gives the people freedom and it also makes them trust us more to say, hey, they're trying to give out something that makes me freer as a human being. I think that that's something that we should really think about investing in.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I'm gonna give my 2 cents on civil engineering because, like I said, I'm still doing it in college, but I do have a little bit of background on some things in order to renovate in terms of infrastructure and planning. So the very first thing that I noticed is that a lot of the infrastructure it seems like it's not planned. There's not a lot of urban planning. There's not a lot of surveying. It seems like a lot of the city is just it's like urban sprawl. Nothing is planned. There's no concrete design. Everything seems to be sort of an urban sprawl. Well, maybe not in the downtown area because that's been there for decades, but still, you can see sort of the urban sprawl. Um, there's no connecting sewer system. There's no connecting pipe system. There's hardly any connecting that is what I've noticed. So the very first thing we would need is we would need to have, a surveying of the land so that we know what we're dealing with, what's the soil like, if there's any particular topographic features that we need to be in particular. Depending on which counties you are in, that plays a factor. The vegetation, that's there, because depending on what the vegetation is, that can determine what type of materials we need to use. And the type of materials that we need to use, obviously, one of the things you learn of is steel and concrete. And we do reinforced concrete with you know rebars. But another important materials would be to use new generation of materials. So self-healing concrete is the innovations we could be making. 3D graphene, aerial graphite, laminated timber, modular bamboo, transparent aluminum, light generating concrete. There's even something that illuminates light at night, translucent wood, spider silk, microbial cellulose. These are all, innovative materials that we could use. So those are some things that would have to be considered when building infrastructure. The materials that we're using and whether or not they are sustainable and innovative. Of course, surveying, making sure it's the right topography. We're aware of any of the features, rivers, because of runoff, from hydrology. You need to be aware of the watersheds, the tributaries that are coming.
Yeah.
um yeah, Minister Dawu can go further on that, but he said, yeah, when you add cameras, they do get nervous, because cameras, it's not like these are regular cameras. These are not like everyday cameras. These are like top notch, like to the detail, to the teeth type of cameras. You know, cameras that can detect a bunch of habits, stuff that you may not even know about yourself, they may be able to pick up. So,
I'm
you
sorry.
know,
I'm sorry, brother. I'm just responding to this dude in the chat room that's telling me, "Oh, we bring our lifestyle. Please stop." As if you know, as if you work in the industry and you know. Everywhere I go, people get nervous where you put cameras in. Everywhere. And so you're gonna tell me we're gonna go to another country and all of a sudden magically they're not, get out of here, yo. This is what I do for a living. I live this. I'm second generation. I can tell you, you can't tell me. And what I know is two or three people may be happy with it, but most everybody's going to question it. Everybody's going to question and say, "Why are y'all doing that?" And that's what I'm trying to prepare all of us is if it happens where we are, it's going to happen everywhere because people don't like to be watched. Now, what ends up
that's what it
happening
really
is,
is.
yeah, I mean, just think about it.
That's
Like
true.
I'll give you an example. If somebody, you have a break room you go to every day, and all of a sudden you see a dude come through and he puts a camera in the break room, what do you think is going to happen? Everybody in the break room is going to be like, "Oh, we can't go in there anymore because they watching us." And in reality, they're not watching you because nobody sits in front of a monitor 24 hours a day, but it's a concern. And we're trying to be realistic here. Nobody's trying to stir up paranoia, but I'm just giving you my expertise and the full scope of the expertise, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro.
No, no, no. You're absolutely right. And like I said, these are top-notch technology. These are not basic cameras. These are next generation cameras. But to get back on that part, on the infrastructure part, another thing I would ask is what types of buildings are we building? Commercial, residential, industrial, because that's going to factor in the zoning. Where I'm allowed to put certain buildings at. It's going to play a factor in the building codes. Or the ordinances, how, what are my restrictions. So those are another things that we have to consider is if I'm gonna build in Monrovia because it's densely packed, I might not have a lot of room or leverage into building a lot of stuff because it's already densely populated. I don't know if things are connected and smooth sailing. So the way that the where I could put the buildings, depending on what it is, I don't have that much wiggle room as to say if I was in a rural area where I can start a little bit from scratch, see the overall lay of the land and design, that particular section the way that I would like. So, what that's what they taught us, here at my university is, building codes, ordinances, surveying, topography, of course, the geography, soils, the soil makeup, the types of, buildings, residential, industrial, commercial, special facilities, because that plays a factor. If you're going to build a industrial facility, that's a special type of construction that I would have to know, so that I might have to import some things from abroad, because I may not have the expertise, or the company or the client that's interested in that may not have what is needed. So all of that is important. And that's my thought on infrastructure. Although, since it's a developing country, and you know there's not a lot of housing that's all top notch, I would say that we need to focus on commercial and residential, making sure that the residential buildings are up to par, focusing on low income housing first, making sure people who are at the bottom have somewhere to stay, making sure that they're all on the same pipes, they're all on the same circuits, making sure the roofs are, of course, solar or renewable. um so that's my sense on that. um
Brother,
when it comes to
there's a good
infrastructure.
question for you in the chat room from the dude iTuber.
He says, taking a little break from a meeting to type this, but this question to consider. We are going in and buying the land as a collective BAO, or is everyone buys their own plot and joins together? Hmm. I would say buy the land as a collective, although we've had meetings before and we've discussed a situation where we may not necessarily need to buy the land, but we would need to have a plan, because we've made connections with Liberians on the ground, and there are plenty of Liberians who are willing to work with us on the land, and the land is not so much of an issue. It's just really the plan, and that's what this whole live stream is about: planning, making sure that we have a concrete plan to present to them, so that they can have confidence in what we're doing. So when it comes to
let
the
me
land, it's a collective, but it's not really much of an issue.
let me back you up on that. Everything we do as BIO is collective. The whole purpose of the BIO is collective. And so if we're going to do something abroad, we're going to do it collectively, because that gives us the most protection that we can from anything that we would have to face. It also is the purpose of us trying to do this because we understand that there's strength in numbers. Um, Enough people have bought land, have moved over and done their thing by themselves. And I'm not putting that down. But what I am saying is that the whole purpose of the BIO is a collective effort. It's a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and everything that we're trying to do, we're trying to do together. So if we, when we do what we do, we will have all sorts of mechanisms and processes in place for us to do it together, because that is the purpose of what we're doing. Everything we're doing is we're doing it collectively, and that is that way. Once we have the proper soil that we need, that we know we're going to get the results that we have. If we do it individually, there's too much of a chance of us being isolated, divided, or whatever. So anything that we're doing, we're going to do collectively.
Yep. And two quick points I forgot to mention for the infrastructure. The first thing is waste management, making sure there's a proper way to dispose waste, and making sure the waste is stored in the appropriate manner, in a safe way, and doesn't contaminate water, contaminate the environment, contaminating animal life. So that's another thing. And secondly is, how long have these buildings been? A lot of the buildings look like they've been there for decades, and they look like they're crumbling. They look um you know, rusty. There doesn't seem like there's a lot of innovation or renovations, excuse me, going on. So that's another important thing when it comes to the infrastructure: is how long have these buildings been? Because if they've been there for 30, 40 years, it might be time to start, building new things, or tearing down the old things that were there, and creating new things, because for there's only a certain lifespan that these buildings can last before we have to either renovate, tear them down, and build a new one. So that's another thing. How long have these, buildings been there, and and how long have they been in those conditions? Um, because that'll determine whether or not we can renovate them or they got to be torn down.
Yep. Same thing with bridges, roads. You got the bridges. You got to look at how old is the steel. When was that bridge first installed? What's the major upkeep on it? How long? How often are they inspected? Um, because if you have like when they did close down the Pulaski Skyway down here going in New Jersey, that they closed that down. I want to say mid 2012, and they didn't reopen it completely until about like I want to say 2017, 2018. Um, the bridges have to be graded out. There's bridges, overpasses, stuff like that. Like how old is the materials that they put that in? Same thing with the pipes going the underground pipes going to the houses in those developments. Well, you got those lots where you got four, five, six, seven houses on one lot. All that stuff has to be, like I said earlier, it's got to be upgraded.
hmm and based on what I'm looking at a lot of these, buildings in I'm looking at Buchanan. It's a city in Liberia, but I'm looking at some of the things in Buchanan, and some of it is good, but there's many portions of it where um the quality of the material just doesn't seem to be right. And another thing that's unfortunate about this is there's not a lot of pictures, so it's really hard for us to go really into it because there's not a lot of satellite pictures. If you look at Buchanan, there's not much. Like, I'm trying to find, some accurate pictures of Buchanan, and just there's not that many. So that's another thing that needs to be provided is drone aerial footages. We need drones. We need, ways to inspect the entire land, because it's just there's not that many photographs, and that's deeply problematic. We need more um um aerial footage.
Definitely.
Ikondayu said we should see how much material can be sourced from the continent. um In terms of much material, there are some construction firms like Tanzania Portland Cement and Dangote Cement that maybe we could work with, that that can provide us some of the construction materials needed. We would just need, but that would be a government thing, because we would need the government to sort of come in and negotiate with Dangote's company, and with the Tanzania Portland Cement, and possibly other construction companies, to provide us with those materials. Oh yeah, good one. Didn't forget this, but good one. He says we have to take into account climate change model as well, which shows that West Africa will lose a lot of coastline in a lot of time. So we'd want to be inland a little, but close enough to use water. That is a very valid point. You know, as sea levels rise, we're going to have to, move inland. And so we're going to need, people to start moving away from the coastline and more towards the central regions of the country. And we need a subway station. And we forgot about that. We need subway stations. high speed transit, because it shouldn't be taking forever for us to get from point A to point B. We should be able to get all throughout that country in under like 2 hours. An hour, it would be ideal, but it shouldn't be no 4 or 5 hours or 6 or 7 hours, in my opinion. Um,
High speed rail.
Well, it looks like we got Dendada on the line. Are you with us,
yes,
bro? I just need to hear that voice. Are you with us, bro? I guess he's just listening in. I haven't heard from my brother in a long time.
yeah, I'm about to say Dundada ain't said anything.
No. Yeah,
Oh
no,
well.
because
Oh,
y'all.
what's up, bro? How you doing?
Yeah, we'll give you the floor.
I'm good. No, no. So like, I was just looking. So like, y'all pretty much was touching on everything that pretty much that I would have talked on anyway. So y'all knocking it right off the park. So everyone that y'all brought up is valid. So from security to climate change to sustainable cities, sustainable living, transportation, all that stuff is a part of new era. So just going to shop where y'all was talking about, you got to think about um, your waste, your sewage, your wastewater, inlet.
You kind of breaking up, bro.
Where we function without making too much impact to the natural resource. So I don't have too much to say, so I'll just chime in whenever you know.
I do have a question for you. It's not infrastructure wise. It's more so security force wise. Um, with the failure of Afghanistan and everybody commenting on that. Let me ask you something. When it comes to defending your own nation and you being a person in the military, how long do you think you would be able to train brothers and sisters to defend their own nation properly? We all know how to street fight. We all know various different things. But as far as training people to defend the nation properly, what do you think the turnaround time would be for a person of your skills and abilities to train people in basic defense of their nation?
I think we lost in data.
Yeah, that's it. We lost Dundada. Dundada's gonna have to come back
Oh,
in.
don't you think that's a good question though?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
That's something.
important.
It is because I'm just saying, like, the thing for me is this, brothers, and I know all y'all can chime in on this. At some point, we were all broke. You know what I'm saying? At some point, we were all broke, weren't making really any money, and really wasn't concerned about the two or three things we had. But once you start making good money and you start acquiring shit, in my judgment, one of the first things you start thinking about is, okay, how do I keep this and secure this? And if you live in a rural city, you live in the hood or whatever, you're starting to think of how I'm going to, protect my family, protect myself. Because, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain things that you have to do. You got to make sure that when you have a big TV, you don't put the box of that big TV right outside your house. You got to make sure that you don't come out with jewelry on in certain places. I'm not saying that in our nation we would have to think about that, but we do have to think about invaders. We do have to think about spies. We have to think about plants, things like that. And so when you look at the fall of Afghanistan, like I said before, everybody is commenting on it like they know exactly what's going on, and they really don't. To no nuance. And all they know is what the media have told them. That is something that you and I are going to have to deal with. We're going to have to deal with defending our territory. It's just really that simple. And so having brothers and sisters in the BAIO who have spent time in the military is of paramount. And I know it's a lot of times that people in a lot of these Black Power organizations, they try to reject the military. They say, "Oh, you know, you served in the white man's military, you sold out." I look at that as stupidity, because to me, they have skills that you're going to need. You're not going to be able to street fight no Boko Haram. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that
I was
Boko
about to
Haram is
say the same thing, and my thing was, are you providing them an alternative? Because you can keep, like I said before, you can keep saying they shouldn't do this, they shouldn't do that, but if you ain't providing no alternative, it doesn't matter. We don't care.
right,
Are you gonna give me something to join up where I can do this? Because I'll do it, but if not, then you know, then don't judge them. And then lastly, when it comes to that, that's true. Like these people don't understand what foreign policy is, and that also goes into infrastructure wise. What type of infrastructure military wise are you developing? you know how are you working with your neighboring countries? Because like he
yes,
said, y'all not gonna street fight no Boko Haram that's in 5 different countries that's causing a mug. You not gonna
right,
street fight AQAP or Al Shabaab or Al Nusra or ISIS in the Maghreb. You're not gonna, like, no, you need to have infrastructure in place, and that means having the military infrastructure, the military facilities, so that everything can be functionally functioning accordingly. That's just what it is.
right, right, right. 100%.
I think I went out. Am I back
Yeah.
on?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yeah,
You
you
are.
back.
Did you
Okay.
hear, did you hear
Okay.
the question I asked you, big brother?
I think you were saying that how long it would take to train our
Yes,
people to defend. Yeah.
yes.
So it's not nothing you could train overnight or watch videos on. It's something that you constantly changing and updating. So that's years and years and years. Because if you look at it, how long the military, the army, the U.S. been over in Afghanistan training their soldiers?
Over
Uh,
a decade.
yeah, 2 decades, right?
Two
And then how
decades,
long
yeah.
it
Yes,
take for
sir.
them? How long it take for them to fall?
A few
So,
hours.
Yep.
so my point. So it takes years to train someone, and then you got to train the person that's going to replace you. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's a constant thing that is never stops, repetitive. You risk management, you got to do all that stuff to figure out what way or direction you need to go as far as strategy. And also, as you brought up foreign policy, military plays into foreign policy. So
Right.
if you don't have a foreign policy set up with your military through your military, I mean, your military is pretty much obsolete because you're not coming to the table with anything. There's no agreement there, you know. So yeah, it's going to take you a minute, and
And
then
also,
like, go ahead.
oh, go ahead, Dada. I don't want to mean to interrupt you, but yeah, but you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
bro.
Yeah, what I was gonna say was that also when it comes to infrastructure is we all know this as people who do stuff, stability or equilibrium. You want things to be stable. As a civil engineer, what don't I want things to do? I don't want things to move. I want things to be at equilibrium. I want things to be, stable. And that's the same way when we apply to foreign policy. In your region, you need things to be stable. You need the government to be stable. We need things to be stable. You can't have we can't build infrastructure if we're busy dealing with terrorism. Because, like one of the things I learned on the job for my brief time there was if they come and they attack something, not only does that hurt the people, the lives that are lost, etc., but we can't use that facility anymore. So now we got to go back and we got to redo it. And that takes years to build. We all know building infrastructure doesn't take a month or 2 months. This is like a year, 2 years, 3 years, sometimes 5 years to build just one building or one thing. And so I think when you look at it from that perspective, that is critical. Making sure your whole region is stable and being, you know, looking out for your interests and understanding that you just standing by and watching is not going to end well. You know, you got to get in the game. You have to get in the game.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and also speaking of sustainability, I know that I used to always hear Agenda 21, and what do y'all what myths y'all heard about Agenda 21? Like,
Honestly, I'm unfamiliar with that. What is that?
okay, so more than likely people be like, Agenda 21 is to depopulize the world and all this good stuff. It's kind of a whole bunch of conspiracy stuff that goes behind it. But
Got you.
when you study, like, um, Jabari was talking about urban planning, this is part of sustainability. Uh, Depopulation isn't like, it's like population control isn't like, hey, we're gonna kill off your your seeds or anything. Like, no, it's controlling the population, how it grows, so we can sustain life. Because the rate that we're going with, even with uh, climate change, we're going to outgrow ourselves, and now we're going to be then this we're going to be short changing people on food and stuff, which we already have short
Thank
changing people.
you.
There's countries that starving. There's countries that's still developing, that's not even at the poverty level that we have in the states. You know what I'm saying? So when we say, oh yeah, I mean, man, we poor, but when you go to another country, when you see poor, that's poor,
Wow.
Yeah, I
Yes,
mean,
like
sir.
literally.
when you living on $1.90 a day, because that's one of the things we're going into. We're going into one of the poorest countries in the world. Let's call a spade a spade. 65% of the population lives in poverty, and that's living on less than $1.90 a day. We're not talking
Yep.
about living like two
Wow.
thousand three. We're talking about living less than $1.90 a day. Sometimes civil servants don't get paid for months. We're also talking about a
Wow.
country that has high birth rates, and that is important because that's going to determine, like I said, the types of building we build. Because you have such high population growth and high fertility, that means we got to spend a lot of money on schools, a lot of money on hospitals, a lot of money on childcare facilities, a lot of our doctors are going to have to be pediatricians, people who focus um you know youth health, focusing on the ministry of youth. That all plays into a factor. What he was talking about when he talks about planning is, since this population is so young and the fertility rate is so high, we have to pay attention to the types of buildings that we're building. We might not be able to afford building some buildings that we like, because we got to build a lot of schools, we got to build a lot of colleges, a lot of research facilities, childcare facilities, a lot of playgrounds, parks. That plays a factor into um you know what are you talking about with population, you know and that's what we don't want. We don't want a situation where, and population growth is important. I'm not saying population growth isn't, but there is a phrase called, if your population growth exceeds the poverty level, I mean economic growth. If your population is growing at 4%, but your economic growth is only growing at 3%, you're bringing in more people into poverty, because your population is outpacing your economic development. And so more people are getting poorer because you're not producing the proper economic gains that you need to sustain that population. So that also goes into urban planning as well, or just planning infrastructure in general.
That's the money. Yeah, that's it right there. Like, a lot of people think, and we got to get out of the mindset of everything a conspiracy. When you hear population control and stuff like that, that has nothing to do with trying to kill you, though. That's my main thing, because you know, as the super conscious person would come in, they kind of overthink stuff, and we be like, no, dog, let's go slow down a little bit. We talking about sustainability here. We can't sustain it if y'all growing faster than we can actually build, or growing faster than we actually can produce the food. And then, as you spoke on, like the with the urban sprawl, sprawl. Like, your city's growing faster than you can produce and all that stuff. So you're taking away from natural resources from one area, trying to bring it in, because ain't nobody going out there farming and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, how many people we know in the city is gonna go out there and farm? Like, that's working. That's not even possible. It's not. Let's just be real about it.
And you have to
Right.
work less, and you have to work less, and that means that we're going to
Exactly.
have to invest a lot more into research and innovation, which is why, you know but we have to get to the infrastructure first, because in order for us to do research and development, we gotta have the infrastructure. And if we're spending all of our money on trying to build schools and childcare facilities, that takes less money away from building research and innovation materials that we're going to need. Because like they project the world's population is going to be 11 billion people. Okay, we're adding 4 billion people. And the thing that people don't understand, that we are aware of, is consumption. Okay, you know, we're assuming that we have enough supplies to feed everybody, but also allow people to consume however much they want. And that's not sustainable. We have to work with less to feed more people. So eventually it's going to get to the point where working in agricultural lands is not going to be sustainable. Instead, we're going to have community farms. We're going to have to do creating artificial meat, because you have to be cognizant of the population and the consumption. How much are these people consuming on a daily basis?
Yep. Sustainable food systems. Y'all start looking this stuff up, because this is real. Like, we cannot. You really don't want to make a move without having a plan come together. Without,
And water, we're seeing what's
exactly.
happening with Egypt and Ethiopia, water wars. Y'all talking about having as many babies, and I said, listen, you can have children, but having all of these babies and say we should just procreate, okay? Well, we have a limited number of water, of fresh water on this globe, and unless y'all gonna help us desalinate this water, there's only so much water that you can use. There's a reason why we're seeing it right now on the West Coast. They're telling them to cut down on water, because we have to work with the water resources that we have. And as somebody who studied hydrology, environmental engineering, when you have limited amounts of it, you can't keep using it. You just can't use it willy nilly. Even in Cape Town, you can't keep using it willy nilly. There's a certain amount of water that you can consume.
Yep. Exactly. And that also goes into power as well. You know, power, water, all that goes into strategy and sustaining yourself. Uh, Start small, and work with what you got. Um,
And the thing all of us haven't even talked about was, we haven't talked about, we got to train these people, and they got to be certified and accredited. It's not just like we can just go there and just like start building. No, like, we need people who are certified. My professor told me, before they even begin, you have to bid a contract. You got to bid to get these contracts. You got to go up to them and basically make your case why you should do this, why you should get this contract. Okay, then once you do that, okay, do we have the people to provide us the materials? Do we have the workforce who can do the necessary, calculations that we need? That takes training. And to be an engineer, especially a professional engineer, you go to college like me for 4 years, then you have to work 4 years in order to get your PE license. But before you get your PE license, you have to pass your FE exam to get certified as a regular engineer. That stuff is what we're talking about here as well, is the workforce that we have, because that's one of the things that they were talking about in the African construction market. The African construction market has less skilled labor. And knowing that we're going into advanced technologies, advanced manufacturing, that requires technical skills. We're going to have to train these people. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I finished my point.
Oh,
Um.
okay. I was like, oh, okay. I thought it just stopped. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, we just can't rush out there, man. Like what I say just boils down to everything is planning. Engineers, um, architects, civil engineers, all the subject matter experts to keep your city running or your town running. And it takes planning. And then once you get that planning, you're gonna have a labor force that's going to sustain those services that need to be on those. Can't build a freaking hydraulic a dam and have no one trained on how to maintain it. Can't build a subway system and have no one trained to maintain it or to operate it. All those things come into place. And also about transportation. I know a lot of people think that building roads and everything is great, but you also want to build a denser town or city to where it's feasible for everybody to get from point A to point B. And if it's distance where everybody has access to that transportation to cut down on the greenhouse gas emissions and stuff like that, to cut down on the climate change and stuff like that. Because I know for one, I'm not going nowhere. I need AC. I'm kind of used to AC. We ain't living in this back in the day, so I need that AC, B. So, uh, the luxuries that we have, we could sacrifice some other stuff. Get out there, even ride a bike, man. That's what a lot of these cities are. If
I
everybody,
mean, we in Liberia. Liberia stays hot and humid year round, 85 to 95% humidity year round. The
Yeah,
only
the air
thing
conditioning.
yeah, that air conditioner is gonna be on point. Them umbrellas is gonna be needed because Monrovia is the wettest capital in the world. Okay, the wettest capital in the world. So that just tells you how much rain it gets. And just so you know, it rains what they consider 5,000 millimeters of rain, and if we convert that into feet, that's about 16 feet of rain that we're dealing with.
yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot of water.
But actually, so where's that water at? Where is the flow is going? How are they using that to their advantage? Things like that. It's the things that you need to look at into moving in. Take that, harness that energy or that natural resource and use it wisely. You know, um, it's just things that you can do with stuff that you already have. It's just getting, like I said, getting that plan together and getting a sustainable city. It's all about your design.
Yep, it's all about the design. And also it's also one of the things that's important is having the 10, 20, 30 year plans because these cities are going to be built over the decades. No city is going to be built in 10 years. Let's be real. We're not building a city in 10 years. It's going to be 20 years, 30 years. And so there needs to be a concrete plan on what we want to see. By the year 2050, this is what Liberia should be looking like.
I'm glad you said that because people think like this is going to happen magically overnight. This is a heavy lift. I mean, this ain't the Marvel universe. You ain't got the cosmic cube and just snap everything into existence. This is I mean, this is for real. This is a heavy lift. This is not just like you said. This is going to take time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources. Man, people should be realistic about that.
And realize also that it's not just going to be strictly us doing it. We're going to have if there are outsiders that are willing to help us build infrastructure, we will more than gladly let them do it. Because one of the things about it is, listen, as long as they meet your standard, as long as they do what is required, that's all that matters. Whether or not we are going to encourage African construction companies and African American construction companies, but if there is a construction company from China, a construction company from Russia, a construction company from Brazil that wants to, build our infrastructure for maybe, diplomatic purposes or strategic purposes, they are more than glad to, because at the end of the day, we got to, like I said, be realistic. And be realistic is all African American construction companies are not going to be building our infrastructure. It's going to be a host of infrastructure companies, countries doing it. So we need to be real with that as well.
Yep.
Anything else? Emoji, you've been very quiet. Is there anything you want to say? Because, like I said, you've been on mute the whole time, and we just want to make sure that you got a
Well,
chance to speak your
well, yeah,
piece.
well, because people here talking who I never get to hear from, so I think it was important to let everybody get what they need to be said. And no one said anything that I wasn't thinking about saying. You know, the main thing that I wanted to say was regarding, and you said it just a few minutes ago about training. Like what we offering is like an opportunity to like come bring our expertise, get people trained up and create jobs while creating infrastructure. And in that light, I wanted to make sure that we was making it very clear that no one is trying to come and try to take over something. It's actually like, I don't think anybody here talking came with like a me kind of attitude, like this is about me, and this is what I want to do and I want to do. I think everybody who was talking said we are, or this is what they could be doing and this is how we can help them, right? Like,
Right.
so I should be clear, because it's really easy when somebody giving you critique, because we just not here like coming with bush-eyed and what they call it, bright-eyed and bushy tail, like, ooh, Africa's like, no, we see that there's work that needs to be done.
Right.
However, we're not just talking about, oh, bad Africa. No, we're saying that we want to come bring our expertise and knowledge and couple and work in concert and make it better for us. So I want to make that point very clear, because a lot of people hear it and just be like, man, y'all just talking about, it's like, no, we just not gonna sit up there and act like we don't see what we see. However, how can we make this better? Now let's get it. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say, just to make that clear. But it was really good to hear from all these brothers, especially the brothers who I don't never get to hear from, straight up. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. I'm going back on mute.
Yeah. All right, brother. Yeah, you can chime in anytime. But what Jacobina Gideon said was true. Modernization of the continent might seem like an ideal situation, but it comes with issues. Maintaining it, running it, is the economy and the people's mindset as a collective ready for it? I think the people are ready for it. I think the thing is what you're saying is maintaining and running it. You have the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, the AFCFTA, which I talked about earlier. But like Ronan said, if you don't have roads, and one of the things about Africa is you have some African countries drive on the right side, some African countries drive on the left side. We need to decide as a continent, in my opinion, are we all going to drive on the left side? Or are we all going to drive on the right side? Because that does play an issue if I'm driving into a country and you driving on the left side and I'm driving on the right side. Because how we gonna enter each other's countries if we drive on the other side road? Because your steering wheel is where the middle of the road is. So, you know, that's a factor too. Ports, building seaports. There needs to be a lot more seaports there as well. Ferries, airports, like you're saying, modernization is what we're all aiming for. But it takes a lot of will, it takes a lot of planning, and you know, the most important thing is you gotta have things in place. It's like you said, um Umoja
I,
was
I,
there.
I want to
I
veggie.
wish.
I
Oh,
want to
go
piggyback on what you're saying, or veggie back on what you're saying. Depends on what meat y'all eat.
ahead.
So to me, to add on to what you're saying, modernization. See, if you look at it from the glass half empty, it does have its challenges. But if you look at it from the glass half full, it has a lot of advantages, because if you're modernizing in a country of people who look like you, think like you, and act like you, then you can do a lot more than in a country like this that we're in, where modernization is being politically opposed, where futurization is being politically opposed, where you have a people that's entrenched on keeping things the same way it is. Now, I'm not saying that's not the way it would be on the continent, but number one, one of the main reasons why we haven't gone over there with the 5, 6 people that we got. I mean, we got more than 5, 6 people, but I'm just saying we don't have enough. is that we're looking at maintaining. We're not looking at going over there with just a couple of people, because that's only going to allow us to do a little bit of stuff and get snuffed out, or time is going to go on. We're trying to go with the groundswell of people so that we can maintain. And maintaining can only happen when you have, like I said before, and I think I said this on my radio show before, if you think you're going to go over there with 5 electricians, you're out of your mind, because
Oh
5 electricians
no.
can't.
Oh no, we've all did project. It takes a good solid 100 at
Exactly.
minimum.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So, laying down roads, it's not going to be 10 people laying down no roads. It's got to be massive amounts. So, people who, and I'm not saying that this sister did that, because I'm pretty sure if she's here, her heart is with us, and she's got love for us. But I'm saying people who criticize us in the past, why ain't they over there yet? It's because we don't have enough people yet. It's really just that simple. And
No,
once we
no,
get enough people,
here's the thing. We're doing it for the collective. We can go over there
right?
right now, get in a plane, and live good. We ain't got no issues. But we're
Thank you,
trying to
bro.
make this for other
Exactly.
African Americans. Because, like I said, we all could pull up tomorrow. I could pull up tomorrow, go to South Africa right now, and start a good company and be good for the rest of my life. But we're not thinking that. We're thinking as
That's
a group.
and
If
that's
the
the issue. That's the issue. Most people all only think about themselves. We could sit up here and say we all day, and the first thing somebody will say is, "Well, what are you doing?" And it's like, are you not listening? We talking about us. What are we gonna do? Not just me, you know. But yeah, but that's a good point. Y'all just making some good points.
That is a good point. I think the perspective, like I look at things from a team sport act because I play team sports. You know, some people, not I'm not saying not within the group. I'm talking about people who want to criticize from outside. They can't put aside their ego. I played football for years. Later on in my career, I became a role player. Was I happy with it? No. But as long as we got victories, I didn't care. I don't
Right.
have a problem seceding, seating leadership or whatever. If someone knows something more about, if someone knows more about traffic counts and traffic safety than I do, I have no problems taking a step back and listening and learning. Just like anyone on here, I've learned, Jabari, the minister, Dadada, Moja, I learn from everybody, and I'm humble enough to admit that. And for me, that is progress. That's what this is about. This is about learning from each other and building something that we can all take a part, be a part of, and not of some, this individualist nonsense that you see here. You know, that's the beauty of this organization. That's one of the most beautiful things about this organization is that I'm just learning from other people, learning, learning,
Yes,
learning.
sir.
We're just learning and it's bouncing ideas off. I mean, this right here, what we're doing right here, this is a culmination of right here.
Right.
And whoever is out there who's listening, who might be trolling or whatever, some nonsense, think about that when you listen to these individuals out there on YouTube or whatever talking that silly nonsense. They're not talking about anything that was discussed in this live stream. Never,
Nope. Nope. Nope.
never.
Nope.
and can I say
Nope. And all
something?
they have done. Go ahead. Go ahead, good bro. Go ahead.
And can I say this? One of the things that people don't understand about even when we're talking about when we focus on um, it's like Ronnie said, being on a team, you can average 30 points and get nowhere. Congratulations, I'm averaging 30, I'm averaging 40, but your team ain't winning. You ain't getting to the playoffs. So everybody going when people look back at your career, people gonna say, yeah, you're a great scorer, but you didn't win because that's what people gonna judge you. People don't care about, oh, well, I dropped 40, 10, and 10. You dropped 40, 10, and 10, and you missed the playoffs every single season. What did you accomplish?
Yep.
I was just revisiting the sister's comment, and I don't know if somebody touched on the last part when she said, "Are the people like maintaining it, and are the people ready for it?" And I do think that that's a good point. Did somebody speak on that yet? Because I don't want to just be redundant.
I haven't spoken on it yet. I saw her point
You
about
know
we
what?
can bring
You know what,
electricity.
Emoji? Who cares if we've spoken it? We're gonna hear you talk about
Yeah, I'm about to say, you say it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I was thinking though that is a really important point that she makes though, because like we're coming in. We're not coming in as like we're not coming in as enemies. We're legit coming in as friends, partners, community. You know, and like I'm the type where like when you talk about geopolitics, if it's something that's going on that has nothing to do with me or my business or affecting us, it's like all right, like sorry for them or that's good job for them, but it's like that's not my business. However, Liberia is indeed our business, and that's why if some people is throwing their nose up at us talking about Liberia, no, well, we actually consider that a part of us in home. So it does concern us. Now, on the flip side, though, there are people that's already there, and I think that getting the people, I know that the people will be on our side when we start breaking down. No, this is what we see, and this is what we see how we can help, particularly when we talk about the politics of it and how the politicians is just raping the economy and keeping all the money for themselves. That's like one of the first things that can get done to immediately start getting people to work for us and spread the wealth off top. Like that's what's gonna build the
And here
infrastructure.
and here's why, I like what Ronan said about the team. You're gonna need BIO chapters in Liberia. You can't just, well, when we get there, we're thinking about doing that as well, because you remember Umoja, well, when we had that meeting and discussion, he asked us specifically. He was looking for specifics. He wasn't looking for vague generalities when we were trying to connect with him.
He
He
said, "What
asked
do you
us
guys
specific.
specifically want to do? What is it that
Exactly.
they want to do?" And then after that, what was almost the very next thing he said is that he know people right now with tons of land, and we'll be surprised about if we go and tell them that how they'll literally say, "Here you go. What can we do with it?"
But it
Just
all
like that.
comes back to, what are we going to do specifically? That's why we're focusing now on specifics. We're not on the vague stuff. We're not doing that. We're doing specifics. That's why we're doing this live stream. We're looking for specifics. Okay, we're doing specifics.
And the
Just saying.
people,
Yeah, go
let me
ahead.
finish my what I was thinking. Getting the people on our side though, that will help put political pressure on the country as a whole. Once the people start coming along saying, "Wait a minute, but what they saying is true though. Like I don't like just being poor." And instead of wanting to go live in America, once we break down how America is not the spot either, you know what I mean? But break that down. I think that they will be glad to hop on and be like, "No, I actually like what these brothers is talking about, and we can do it right here. How about that? How about we have Liberians start saying we can do it right here? We ain't got to be trying to leave. This is our home, and it can be good." So yeah, I think that's gonna be very important though. Is spreading this message to the average everyday people and changing their mindset from like we just a third world country, even if they don't think like we're a third world country. But if you living in all you know is third world country, your thoughts is gonna be at a third world level. Period. For the most part, right? So get them to think higher, think above their reality, and show them a different reality. I think that's gonna be like very paramount to our success.
Hey, I just want to give a shout out to Jacobina. She's the beautiful queen that was in Namibia. She was our tour guide out there. So she has a think tank that kind of like reflects what we're thinking as well. So she is an architect and she works with, she have a group of architects and engineers that she's working with trying to sustain the same thing in her country as well. But she also like to expand and
Mm-hmm.
link up so where, it could possibly like be an intercontinental thing where we have a couple of hubs. I know we talked about that a few times, but she's definitely that deep into it. So she speaks with knowledge. So definitely, if we ever get a chance, have her on, and or we can talk with her and just hear her thoughts as well. It's definitely worth listening to. Yeah, she
Man,
was.
Dundada been holding out, y'all. Come on, man. He talking about definitely getting up with her. Hey, he the plug. He the plug talking about y'all
No,
need to find
man.
the plug. He,
Jacobina,
he is the plug
Jacobina, if
talking
you
about
want to
y'all
do
need
an
to find the
interview,
plug. That's crazy.
just let us know, and we'll gladly bring you on the platform. If you want to get on the platform, just let us know, and we'll have you on as soon as possible.
You won't be
Yes.
disappointed. Trust me, man. I promise you. Yo, she's definitely there, and she got like I said, she got like a think tank of guys and females that she worked with over there in Namibia, and man, the stuff that they think, I was like, well, shit. y'all don't really need us, you know. But it's good just to add on to the party, though. You know what I'm saying? It's more hands on can do a lot more, right? But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she's definitely in that mindset. So just wanted to give her a shout out. I'm glad she did
This is not
join
just
and
about
listen
us.
in.
It's about
Right,
all.
exactly.
It ain't no look at us, look at BIO. Look, no, we trying to do this as a unit.
I mean, we can do it as a unit, but when he's saying look at us, the BIO, you do want that swag though. We do need to get that swag though, where we get to the point where look at us, look at us, look at what we doing. We the baddest on the block. We running the show now. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, before we get off this live stream or whatever, I recommend to the audience or the listening audience to look up sustainable development goals. It's like 17 of them. When you're thinking of a nation, you think about these 17 goals to work towards sustaining your city or whatever country that you are in. If you fail at any one of those, you're going to have issues. So this is a global thing, but when you're in a developing country, these are the balances that you have to check to make sure that you have a sustainable uh, city or government or economy. So let's look that up. It's not no conspiracy stuff. You'll see probably the word Agenda 21. And when you look at the word Agenda 21, now you see that you got a bunch of people that don't understand economic or strategy. So you heard it from here. Ain't
Yeah,
nobody trying to kill you.
thank you, thank
Yeah,
you,
they
thank
look at
you.
that and they start thinking X Files. So
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, my last thing to say is, once again, thank you guys all for coming on this panel. We really needed this. Thank you guys for being interactive. We will have a Sunday live stream as well. Um, we will continue. I will continue doing the BIA news and the Liberian presidential series so that y'all can be informed on Liberian history, get the background, have some background knowledge, and understanding that you have to see the vision. If you can't see it, you can't get nowhere. You have to see it first, then you have to take the specific steps to get there, and that's where we are focusing on the specifics. Where do we want to go from here is ultimately what it is. That's my last thing to say. You guys have any last things to say?
it was good to hear from Dendata. I don't think I have ever chopped it up with the Dendata before, so it was good to hear you on here, brother.
Man, I'm in these streets, man. You talking about? Nah, I was just doing. I just was traveling and doing a lot of. I'm trying to complete my degree in urban planning. Just trying to catch up so this way I could be more effective to a group of people that is on the same page. So yeah, that's what I've been doing, man.
That's great, man. I like hearing stuff like that, yo.
All right, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video. All right, fam.
All
Peace.
right, peace, family.
Peace.